The WSL returns for its winter break this weekend, and before the action gets back underway, we're here to predict the second half of the season. We're rectifying some frankly awful predictions from the start of the campaign and judging how each team has done so far. Make sure to leave your predictions in the comments below. These are our mid-season WSL table predictions. Alright, let's get into it. The WSL returns from its winter break this weekend, and ahead of it returning, we're here to predict the second half of the season. So we're going to be using our deductive reasoning. It's quite difficult, obviously, with the transfer window not being concluded yet, Harry, but today we're going to make some educated guesses. We're going to make some predictions for the second half of the WSL season.
Yeah, what we've realised is that we were probably very wrong at the start of the season with our pre-season predictions, so we're going to redo them at this mid-season point.
I don't know what you're talking about, mate. I still think Leicester are going to finish 5th. Can't wait for that to happen. But yes, we were probably incorrect with those. So today's a chance to reconcile those awful predictions and predict the second half of the WSL season. So let's start then with a very tasty position, bottom of the league, the relegation zone. Harry, who have you gone for to be relegated this season?
This was a tough one. I think there will be a few teams in that relegation fight, but I have gone for West Ham. I think this year's their year. They were second last apart from Bristol City last season. I wasn't inspired by the first half of the campaign, and yes, they are 3 points off the relegation zone, but without that win against Crystal Palace, the fact they hadn't pulled that back from 2-0 down, if they'd lost that game 2-0, then they would find themselves rooted to the bottom of the table. So for me, they're in 10th, and yes, they're 3 points in a relegation zone, but that isn't enough for me, and I think Palace have proven that at times they've got a little bit more steel, a little bit more grit, to go out and get better results, to get points against teams that you wouldn't expect them.
Yeah.
West Ham, so far in the window, all they've done is renew contracts, bringing long-term deals, which is good to see, but it's not going to impact the performance on the pitch necessarily. So for me, I think West Ham, it's a year, I think they will drop down to the Championship.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because West Ham weren't properly in my considerations. Obviously, I thought about it, but I think for me, it's very much between Leicester and Crystal Palace right now. I think if you look at the West Ham squad, their attack is just too strong for me to see them going down. And I'll put Crystal Palace bottom. And it's a shame because you want to see teams come from the Championship and compete. And I think Palace have competed. But I still think they're a way off being with the likes of Leicester, with the likes of West Ham. I think if Leicester add a forward in January and once Jutta Rantala comes back around March, I think they're going to be a much stronger team. I think West Ham's attack is so strong they should be fine, even if their defence has been shaky at times this season. So I think the problem for Palace is there's simply a quality gap there. And I think it won't happen too much in the future because I think the Women's Championship is becoming closer. I think the investment in the Women's Championship is becoming closer to that of the WSL. You look at some of those top sides, but right now I think that gap has been too big. It was last season, Bristol City. It's way too big. They finished on 6 points. Palace haven't been that bad. They've been competitive. But I think when it comes down to those individual games, to those big moments, I just don't think Palace have what it takes.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where whoever goes down, it is going to be close. I don't see this being a relegation fight that is over before, with a few games to go. It will be tight.
Palace would have to do very well to fall apart in the way Bristol City did.
Exactly. It will be tight, and in 11th, I have put Crystal Palace. I think it will be final day heroics. It might be that Palace are bottom of the league until the final game week where they manage to jump West Ham. I don't know. But I think that they will survive somehow. They will fight, they will pick up a point, they will pull off some big results, and they will just about edge out West Ham for me. Maybe this is me just wanting to see a Championship side stay up, but Crystal Palace, I think they've shown some signs of real quality. They've got some big players that I think in the second half of the season could fire them if they can get a striker who either one of the ones they've already got or bring in a new one who can just start to find the back of the net a bit more regularly. That could be absolutely crucial because for me, the likes of Paige Riley, the likes of Annabelle Blanchard are enough to rival the quality that West Ham has in attack. I really do. They just missed that out and out number 9. But for me, I think Palace will stay in the division. They've shipped a lot of goals, but I also think at times they have been really defensively solid. And that could prove key in the second half of the campaign.
Yeah, fair enough. This was no surprise to anyone who just listened to my comments on 12th. I've put in 11th Leicester. I just think they're missing that spark in attack. I think if they add something in January, this could be a different story. And maybe it'll be very competitive between them and West Ham. Maybe they could even find themselves higher up the league. But I just think they're missing those goals. They've scored the least in the league this season. I don't think that 3 goals from 10 games or 4 goals, something like that, is an acceptable return. And I think, yes, they picked up a big result against Chelsea, but there's still so many questions for me as to how Leicester close that gap to other sides in the league.
Yeah, very much so. And yeah, same reasonings. In 10th place, I've put Leicester. The reason I've done this is because I think they will struggle. They could find themselves bottom of the league. They could find themselves staying in 11th until February. But then I think a wonderful player called Jutta Rantala will come back from injury and they will magically climb the league. I think they won't be able to climb the league drastically because it'll be so late in the season. But I do think that the impact of Rantala will boost the team's goal scoring output. We know they're still solid at the back. So I think they out of that bottom three, which I think will all be close, I think Leicester will just finish ahead of the two of them. And in 10th, it's not the ideal season, but they can work from it.
Yeah, fair enough. 10th, I've gone West Ham. I think it's going to be a really good season for the Hammers. I think that you putting them bottom of the league was a real surprise for me. I don't think they've played too badly this season. They're on the same amount of points now as Liverpool, Everton, Aston Villa. They're in that conversation. I think that they've got a big enough margin now that they won't be caught in the next few weeks by Palace and Leicester, and I think they'll be able to rack up points in the meantime. I was tempted to put them higher. I think that I was swayed by a certain FA Cup result that convinced me of Sean Goater's prowess, but if not, maybe West Ham would have been higher. I think they've played well this season. I think they've been unlucky at times. I think when you consider that they could easily have another 5 points if you take away games that Kamir Size has scored an own goal in, that shifts a lot for me. So I think that the results have been harsh. The table tells lies. I think West Ham are a better side than the points suggest.
Yeah, definitely. I think we have that bottom three. I think 10th, 11th, 12th. I think everyone will look. For me, West Ham, Palace.
I can see West Ham slightly higher, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
I don't know. I think we then had to see this next bracket of teams, which for me could finish in any order, and this was actually
Can't catch Brighton.
This was actually the hardest part of the table to predict, because as you say, I don't think they're going to catch the top five, any of these teams, but I don't think they're going to drop into that relegation fight. So it is a bit of a weird bracket of 4 teams here, which I don't really know what order they're going to finish in. In 9th, I have gone for Aston Villa. Now, this is a tough one because I think I've done this purely because I like Sean Goater, but he's not he isn't a top manager. If they do bring in bring in a manager, that could change my mind. But I do think that they've played very, very well. You look at some of the results they've beaten West Ham, which was absolutely huge. They won their League Cup game against Charlton, and they absolutely battered Bristol Rovers. And yes, Bristol
convinced me of Sean Goater.
Because yes, Bristol Rovers aren't very good, but it still takes something for Villa to go out and put 8 past them. And it was good for if Leon got on the score sheet, Salmon, Daly. I'm not going to sit and name all the goal scorers. I can't remember them all.
I think they were all 9 different ones.
It was brilliant.
Big result though.
Yeah, and I think it was really positive for them. And Leon has been a player that I've been very impressed with. Come back into the side and done really well. I just think that I think they'll comfortably beat the sides below them. The thing is, when it comes down to it, when you need a manager who can perhaps make the difference, I don't think they're going to quite beat the teams above them, or they're going to find it tough to beat the teams who are ahead of them. So for me, I think Villa will finish 9th.
Yeah, I've also put Aston Villa 9th. I think if you look at the sides that are in that bracket, as you say, a lot of them have made improvements in January. In fact, all the other sides in that little mid-table bracket have made improvements in January. I think that Villa will feel like they have because they're bringing back in players of high quality. You look at the re-rise of Adriana Leon recently. I think that's shown there is such quality in this Villa side. It's just about how they utilise it.
Yeah, very much so. Their players are incredible. They've got Jordan Nobbs, who's made the most appearances in WSL. Very handy player. Rachel Daly, who finished top goal scorer a couple years back. We can't forget. So it's definitely not a bad team. It's just been a really tough 6 months, and I think they'll do their best to rectify it.
Yeah, on to 8th.
8th place, I have gone for Tottenham. I think we will see a drop-off for Tottenham Hotspur in the second half of the season. I still can't understand how they're 6th. I don't think the performances on the pitch have been very good.
Yeah.
Yes, they've done really well at getting the results. I just don't think they've played very well. And they have made improvements. They've brought in Olivia Holt, which might help them. Someone might score a goal other than Beth England. That would be helpful. But overall, I just think they've conceded way too many goals, and I think the performances will catch up with them, and the results will start to slip away. As it's one of those where we said it in the mid-season reviews that we did as well. Is that for Tottenham, I think they will slip off in the second half of the season, but it may not be because of their own doing. I think the teams below them right now in the league have made really good improvements and are going to come flying through. They're going to have a good second half of the season, and I think Tottenham will be the victims of that. So for me, I think Tottenham will drop down into 8th.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I'll get on to my Tottenham in a moment because in 8th I've gone for Everton. I think that while the January recruitment has been really strong, I don't think it's closed them up in quality to Liverpool to Tottenham. I still think on paper they're better sides and have better game changers, have players that can alter the result in such a significant way. If you think of players like Beth England, Olivia Smith, for example, Marie-Therese Herbinger, Haley Raso, across those two teams, I think you've got players there who can change the game in an instant. I look at this Everton side and I don't really see anyone that could do that. Kelly Gargo is unproven at this level, could come in and be fantastic, but we can't make assumptions that she will. They just need her to come in and be a reliable goal scorer, really. And I don't look at any of the other attackers and say, well, they can rely on them. I mean, Cassius Nice this season couldn't hit a barn door with a banjo. So Tony Payne's look good, but I don't think she's a game changer in that same sense. So I think that it's difficult for me to say that Everton will be above Tottenham and Liverpool. I think that on paper they're stronger sides. I think they have better managers. I think Sorensen's a good coach and has coached some big results this season, but I don't think they're quite to that Tottenham Liverpool level yet.
Just you wait to see where I've put Everton.
Winning the league.
Yes, champions. On to 7th, I have gone for Liverpool. I think Liverpool's season is very hard to predict right now because they've recruited very well. It all determines what's going on with their injuries. If they have a second half of the season that is plagued with the same amount of injuries as the first, if they rush players back and they get injured again, then they're going to be in for another really tough second half of the season. If their players come, if Herbinger comes back and remains fit, if they can have a consistent starting goalkeeper, if Romain Howe comes back and is ready to play, if Holland can stay fit, if Parry gets back, that's a lot of players, but that's the crisis they've been under. For Liverpool, if they can get their starting 11, back to fitness, they've bought in Sam Kerr, they've bought in Bartel, I think they will have a decent part of the season. The reason I've put them 7th is because I think it's going to take time for those players to come back and B, those players to find their top level again. Because it's not been, the problem for Liverpool is that it's not been loads of players having small injuries. It's been loads of players who have been out for a good few weeks to a couple of months now. And we haven't seen them for a while. So they aren't just going to come back into the team and immediately click. I think it will take time. I think Bartel and Kerr are for not a brilliant loan signings. Will they deliver from the off? Well, they kind of need to, but I don't know if they will. It'll be very interesting to see. I could see them finishing higher. If they do come back, if it does all work, it all comes together, Matt Beard and the quality of that squad will rise up the table further than 7th. But for me, I just think it's going to be a slow and steady second half of the season. I think it will take a while for them to get back to that, top quality performance, which is why I don't see that. I think they'll end up finishing 7th.
Fair enough. I think that's really interesting. 7th, I have put Tottenham. I think you underestimate them slightly in when you spoke about them. I think if you look at their record this season, they've beaten everyone below them with the exception of Liverpool. They've lost to every team above them with the exception of Brighton, who they drew to. So I think where they are in the table right now is quite fitting. Liverpool, obviously, having beat Tottenham, I think on paper being a better side, should jump them. And that's why I placed them ahead of them. But I think Tottenham will be better in the second half of the season. I think they will be slightly closer to those top sides. I think Olivia Holt is a really nice signing. I think that adds goals, that adds creativity. It just adds something different for a bit more dynamism in this Tottenham attack. They've looked really stagnant and lost at times. So I think Holt adds a whole new dynamic to that. And I think that should be really interesting. But yeah, Tottenham are in a decent spot. So that's why I put them 7th.
Fair enough. Into the top half of the table then, and finishing in 6th, I've put Everton. I have been convinced by the Brian Sorensen wonder window, I think you can call it. Everton, it was a tough start to the season. They then ended 2024 with a huge results towards the end of the campaign. They won the Merseyside derby. Yes, they absolutely robbed Liverpool, but they did it. So they won that. They beat Manchester City, and it set themselves up really nicely to push on into the campaign. And they've backed up those performances by bringing in having a huge window. We are only 13 days into January, and they have made some brilliant signs. We've seen Martina Fernandez from Barcelona on loan, we've seen Kelly Gargo, we've seen Emma Watson, and we've seen Hayley Ladd all walk in the door so far.
Yeah,
Brilliant
with
window.
potentially more to come. It's
Yeah.
something we're going to talk about in a proper video later this week, but I get what you're saying.
But overall, I think that they are the type of signings that they will boost them up the league. And for Everton, if Sorensen can keep, coaching his side to pull off brilliant results, if these signings can reinforce the side both in the final third and in their own defensive third, they're going to shore themselves up at the back while being, potent in attack. Hopefully, going to cause more problems to other teams in front of goal. If they can start to score a few more goals and ship a few less, that's why I think they're going to rise up the table. I think they're in for a really good second half of the season. Maybe I put them too high, and the likes of Liverpool and maybe Tottenham could finish ahead of them. But I back Everton. I think they're going to finish in the top half, which would be a phenomenal season and would be a huge result. And credit to them, because they were rock bottom of the table after a few game weeks. So if they did manage to get in the top half, that would be a worldie of a season.
Yeah, in sixth, I have gone Liverpool. I just think the quality there is so much higher than the other teams in that conversation. They've been plagued by injuries this season. I'm surprised they've targeted midfield exclusively. I think that while they've added Sam Kerr and Yuli Bartel, and both are handy, I think there are other areas of the squad that still need addressing. I think a wing back is really crucial, especially on the right-hand side. I think a striker, and then moving on Daniels or Kiernan, someone like that would make sense to me. Maybe that's more of a summer job, but I definitely think a right wing back is useful unless they know that Parry's only a few weeks off now. But yeah, I think that Liverpool are a really good side. I think Matt Beard's a really good coach. I think they'll probably be all right.
They probably will, but I'm going for a bit of fun. I want Everton to get into the top half.
I mean, you look at the Everton-Liverpool game, for example, that's a huge 6-point swing.
Yeah.
And if it's a different referee on that day who had their eyes open, maybe that result would have been completely different. So I think it's really difficult to make. You look at the table right now, it's so close, but little results like that could have had a huge impact. And I think in the second half of the season, that favour, that fortune tends to balance out by the end of the campaign. So I think in that regard, Liverpool will just, it's almost just, they're massively underperforming where they should be. I think at some point they're going to come up and it'll balance itself out again. So, yeah, I think they'll probably be all right. Fifth, who have you gone for?
I'll say into the top five. This is where it gets very tasty. For fifth, though, I've gone for Brighton. I think that is the easiest prediction.
It's the safest because they're in no man's land.
Yeah, a lot of people will make this prediction. They are, they're a good couple wins, a good couple losses away from they're 6 points. They're a couple bad results away from falling down, but they're also a couple of results from going up. They've got a nice buffer either way. I just don't see them moving. I don't see them dropping off enough that they get caught by the teams behind them. I don't see them turning over enough points to catch the teams ahead of them, because they're now in a position where they'd have to go and beat Man City, go beat United, go and beat Arsenal, and I just don't see that happening. I don't think they're quite there yet, as has been proven over the course of the season. They can go and challenge those teams, but they can't beat them.
Yeah.
But as I said, I don't see them dropping off. I think Brighton are probably, out of the whole table, Brighton are the ones that I think their position is the most nailed on, the most secure, and I think they'll take that. No Brighton fan is complaining at finishing fifth this season. Credit to Vidicic, what they've done this campaign. I think they're going to hold their level of consistency. Even if the performances drop a little bit, like they did in that Tottenham game when they drew, I still don't see them dropping off.
That's the thing. I think this weekend will tell us a lot, because this Friday they face Liverpool. I think if Liverpool do win that and they can close that gap up to 5 points, then that's not insurmountable. However, I think Brighton have been uber consistent this season against the sides below them in the table, but the problem is they've not shown any ability to beat the sides above them in the table. They were close to City, they were somewhat close to Chelsea until they made loads of individual errors, but they've been tanked by Arsenal, and they drew United, to be fair, but then United always have a rogue result in their locker. So, I think that Brighton are in a comfortable position now. I think they'll be turning their attention in this window towards the summer. Renewals, who they can get on a free, stuff like that will be the focus of Brighton. So, they're in a really good spot. I can't see them going up or down, so that's why I've got them in fifth. Fourth place.
Top four, always the hardest to
Very
predict.
difficult, yeah.
Fourth, I've gone for Manchester City. I think could be a surprise to a lot of people to see Man City slip out of the top four. I worry for them. They don't, for me, their squad depth could cost them dearly. And this prediction could change because the FA Cup game did catch me out slightly into terms of the fact that they did actually rotate. We saw Yui Hasegawa benched for the first time. We saw Alexandri rested.
Yeah.
And they have brought in Knack, which I think could really help them. The problem is that, again, obviously I know the likes of Shaw are coming back soon and Hemp's coming back soon, but with Greenwood out for the season, is Knack good enough? Yes, Knack can play those games against Ipswich Town and the lower sides in the league. Is she good enough to put up a fight against the other teams in the top four? I don't know. And with Greenwood not coming back for the season, yes, Hemp and Shaw are coming back, but what if they get injured again? And then suddenly they've got the same problem. They're then playing the same 11 that we saw against Everton, and they're dropping more points. I just think that City are in a spot of bother because the position they're in now, if they end up losing the Manchester derby, they will slip to fourth, and then by that point they're going to have to hope that they can't afford to really drop any more points, which is going to be very difficult to do. So I think it will be tight. There will only be a couple of points between second, third, and fourth. I think Man City will be the unfortunate ones that do slip out of that top three and will fail to get Champions League football.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, we are agreed on something here. I've also put Manchester City fourth in the table. I think City just haven't been particularly strong this year. They've played well in a lot of games, but recently a lot of weaknesses have been exposed. The fact that if they don't have Hemp on the pitch, I don't think they're creative. If they don't have Shaw on the pitch, they can't really finish chances. I think Greenwood's a huge loss, but I still think I don't think Knack's a bad player at all. I think that's a really decent signing, but you can't just address huge structural issues with personnel. There are tactical problems with Manchester City. They're way too aggressive. They want to push both fullbacks on at all times. Their rest defence is practically non-existent, and they were caught out by that against Everton. Now, what will be really interesting to see is how they play against United. Will they be aggressive? Will United be able to exploit that? We saw how Chelsea were able to utilise a bit more of a mid-block, a very compact defensive system, and then looking to counter. We saw Everton have success with that. I think if United play that sort of way, that could be a game that they take something from. So yeah, I think City are in a bit of a spot of bother right now. And as you say, the squad depth is really poor. It's a really light squad. I think if an injury to Yu Hasegawa was to come, they're in real trouble. So, yeah, and with the number of competitions they've got to play, even without an injury to Hasegawa, she can't play them all.
Yeah,
surely the fatigue will have an impact. So, yeah, it's a really weird predicament. But I think City are in a position now where the fixtures are stacking up. They haven't really got a big enough squad without serious investment over this January transfer window. I don't see how they're going to stay second in the league. I think Arsenal and United have both been in good form, are both snapping at the heels.
Yeah.
And I think they'll be keen to show that they can finish in the European places. I think City are in trouble.
Yeah, I think they are, and that, as you say, that is part of the reason is the fact that Arsenal still haven't lost a game under any Slagers, which is incredible. Will that happen? Well, we don't know. And Man United seem to be absolutely flying right now.
United have lost one game this season in all competitions. That's Chelsea.
That's absolutely incredible. They've conceded 4-5 goals. It's ridiculous. So
I think it's lower than that. It's 3, isn't
it? Is it still 3? It's just ridiculous. It's incredible numbers they're putting up.
Yeah, only 3 goals conceded.
Crazy stuff. So for me, I think City are in trouble. For third place, I have put Manchester United. I think they're playing very nice football. I think there's a good chance they're going to win the Manchester derby this weekend, and then suddenly they put themselves into the top 3. They are playing some really nice football. Credit to Mark Skinner; he has got his players firing. They're starting to link up. Ella Toone was back in the FA Cup, and even she scored a goal. And that's a player who's had a really tough end of 2024, start of 2025 with a win, and that's and that's what's going on at Manchester United. Is that everything is just so positive. They're playing such nice football. The attackers are in form. The defence has been superb. And I think they will find themselves finishing in that top 3. If they keep this level up, they're in for a really good season. The reasons I've put them behind the other 2 teams, well, obviously Chelsea left, it's obvious. And I just can't look past the fact that Arsenal haven't lost a game under Rene Slagers. I still think that is very strong. I think the thing that could favour United is the fact they're not in Europe. And that could come back to bite the other 3 teams in this top half fight. So maybe they'll finish higher than I expect. But for me, United's third.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Third place, I've gone Arsenal, which I think then people can draw conclusions to who's second and first. But I put Arsenal third. I think I've still got huge reservations about Slegers as a permanent. I think that I understand the clamour to have her as a permanent, but I get why the board have reservations. They've not played Chelsea. They've not played Manchester City. I think the Bayern result was a huge extraneous. The weather that day had an impact, and it meant neither side really played football. And so I don't count that result in favour or against really. And so yes, they've won every game apart from the draw against Manchester United, which again they've not beaten anyone above them,
true.
Around them in the league. The Brighton result was particularly emphatic, and that does have a huge, does weigh hugely in favour of for Slegers and for them playing well. But I think there are too many issues still. I don't know how sustainable Russo's form is. That we haven't seen her have an extended period like this, so we'll see if that continues in the second half of the season. I still think that they are a little bit stagnant in attacking areas at times, but there's huge questions. I think they've played really well. I don't think that's up for debate. But when it comes to Chelsea, when it comes to City, are they going to be tactically good enough to break them down? I'm not too sure. They've still got United as well to play, and I think the reverse fixture against Manchester United, Arsenal were much better than United in that game, but they only drew, and that just. It makes it really difficult for me to then say, well, obviously then Arsenal are going to beat them, because I think United have been so good this season. I think Skinner's been much better tactically than he has before. You look at how they set up against Chelsea, against Arsenal. This City game's been really telling, but I think United are in a really good position. And I think the fact that they've got less games to play, they've got less pressure on them this campaign, I think that will be very beneficial.
Yeah, fair enough. Second or champions? What do we first?
We'll go second. I think everyone knows who we put top. It's the worst kept secret. That's fine.
Second, I've got Arsenal. I just think they've been in brilliant form. It's absolutely incredible, and I think they could end up losing at the bridge to Chelsea. But apart from that, I think they're in for a really, really good end of the season. They're playing very, very well. When top players when the likes of Russo is on her top form, we haven't seen this version of Alessia Russo in a very long time. She ended the season with I want to say 7 goals in 6 WSL appearances. Really good form. If she can keep that up, they're going to be, she's going to end on a really good tally. I think they've got decent rotation, so I think they can balance the competitions pretty well. I think they're in for a really good end to the campaign. Yes, I think that Slegers, as you say, they haven't had, she hasn't been tested yet as a coach against the top side. But for me, I think they're going to do enough to end up finishing second. I think I favour them to beat the likes of Man City, United. Who knows what's going to happen there? But I think you're right. I think it'll be very tight between Arsenal and United. And I think it'll be close with City as well. But for me, I've just gone Arsenal because of the form they're in. But as you say, United have also been incredible this season. So it's hard to call between those two sides. I've just favoured Arsenal.
Yeah, fair enough. Second, I've put Manchester United. I think we've spoken now a lot about I've spoken a lot about how I rate United quite highly. I rate Skinner quite highly at the moment. I think we're going to do a video later this week looking at United and how they could beat City, because a lot of it will come down to personnel and how they set up. But I think United are in a really strong position now. You look at that squad and it's very well balanced. I mean, we did a video looking at every team and what they should do in this January. And it's very difficult for Manchester United because defensive midfield is an area that you go, well, an improvement is needed. But then Dominic Jansson's looked much better in recent weeks. And Simi Awujo is a decent young prospect. Hinata Miyazawa's playing really well in that role. So while they are a little bit light in some areas because their backup centre half is playing defensive midfield, I think they're only one more player in that sort of area away from being a really well-balanced squad. Somehow they have managed this. It's really impressive. They've added a backup goalkeeper, which I think is helpful. More pressure on Palantalis Joyce is a good thing, I think, because she's played very well this season, but you want to keep that and you want to maintain that level. So bringing a goalkeeper who could be pushing Palantalis Joyce, I think is really helpful. So yeah, I think they're in a good spot. I'd still have question marks over what they're going to do with Ella Toon. And that will be really interesting because I think if they try and shoehorn her in, it could be to the detriment of the system, could be to the detriment ultimately then of Manchester United. But provided they don't do that, I think they could be all right.
Yeah, it's one of those where I think, you like the West Brom, she can come on the pitch and make a difference, but they can't force her into the team. And if she's not restarting, then I think she's going to have problems with that. So it's a very hard situation.
It'll be interesting how that's managed, because I think if they bring her back on that left wing, it won't work.
No.
And that will be to the detriment of the team. If they bring her into attack midfield, that's really harsh on Grace Clinton. And I think right now that makes you a worse team, which is a crazy thing to say, but Clinton's been so good and Toon hasn't.
It depends if Toon's going to come in and perform. She got a goal against West Brom, but can she back that up? Can she continue to find her best form? And if she does, then suddenly United are in a world-class position, because they've got this incredible rotation of Toon and Clinton, who are both playing at the top of their game, and they're suddenly like a really scary team. Yeah. Well, they are. Teams should be scared of them. They're playing incredibly well.
Yeah, absolutely. Who do you think's going to win the league, Harry?
I think Chelsea are going to win the league.
No, that's an outrageous statement.
How dare I say it? But yeah, Chelsea, they're nailed on. They've got, if they didn't have such a buffer, maybe it'd be tighter, but they've got a really nice buffer. The squad depth is there. They're the only team, and maybe at centre-half, but apart from that, I don't see them getting impacted that much at all by playing in 4 competitions. Bonpastor put out a statement. The fact the squad was so strong for the Charlton FA Cup game just shows that Bonpastor means business. She wants to win. She doesn't just, it's not a dream to win 4 competitions. It is an expectation. There is an objective at Chelsea to go out and win the quadruple. And Bonpastor knows how to manage that. She's done it. She's done it. Well, she's won treble. She's won trophy after trophy. She knows how to do it, and that you just can't fight against that. There's no, when you've got one of the best managers in the world with one of the best squads in the world, it's very hard to beat.
Yeah.
And I think Chelsea, the fact they're already, is it 5 points clear, 6 points clear?
6 points clear.
6 points clear. I just don't see, even if they lose to Arsenal and City, they'd still be level on points with them all. And they've all got to play each other after that. So,
and well, this is my thing. I think because I've also put Chelsea first, just to spoil it. I think it's not unrealistic that Chelsea could be 10 points clear at the start of February. If United beat City this weekend, if Chelsea beat Arsenal, and then if Arsenal City drew, then suddenly Chelsea could find themselves 10 points clear, and that would be, at that point, I'd view that as unsurmountable, which would be in a really strong position for Chelsea. No, obviously anything can pan out. This is football. But they are in a really good spot. I would be surprised if they go through this window without adding a centre-back. Or Villa Berman is brought into the first team, which would be a big step, but it's not impossible. But I think they will probably add a centre-back during this transfer window. As to who that is, well, obviously Naomi Gurma's the name that's been on everyone's lips. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but there are very strong links there. There is well-documented long-term interest, so we'll be interested to see what happens there. But I think Chelsea have just looked complete. They've not looked like losing in any game this season. And that's the big thing. You take the City game, they didn't look like conceding, let alone losing.
Yeah.
And then they sprung quickly on the counter and they took their chances and they won that game. And that, for me, shows the difference at the moment, because Taylor had no idea what to do. He didn't change anything up. He didn't react to what Von Persie had done. And ultimately, Chelsea came through that game. They made the changes. They won that match. City reacted way too late. And there is the difference. Chelsea are proactive. Bob Persie is pragmatic. The side in quality, I think, is stronger than Manchester City. And so I don't really see how City close that gap up. And Chelsea could find themselves in a really comfortable position in a few weeks' time.
People will mention the Leicester game. And yes, that was a poor form for Chelsea. But that weekend told all is that Chelsea can drop points and don't get punished for it.
Yeah.
City didn't punish. So Chelsea, all it's proven is that Chelsea can drop points and it won't, and it doesn't matter. But also B, I think Bonpastor's reaction to that game says absolutely everything, that won't happen again. Yeah. Chelsea will not slip up again. Man City didn't punish it, and now I don't see a way back. Chelsea opened the door for them. City then closed it on themselves, and that could be that really.
Yeah, and the key difference in those two games is that Chelsea in the Leicester game was really unfortunate not to take their chances, not to finish them off. They should have won that match. City were peppered in the Everton game.
Well beaten, yeah.
They had dominance of possession, but they didn't make anything of that. And then they were hit on the counter. And against a better finishing opposition, against a stronger opposition, they would have lost that game by a much larger margin, because Everton had so many opportunities and they just couldn't take them because they're lower quality players. But they did take some of their chances, and they did win that game. And City was so far off in that one.
Yeah.
And so I think there is a real opportunity for United this weekend. There's a real opportunity for Arsenal in a few weeks' time to take advantage of that. I think City's focus should almost be shifting to the Cups at this point because the league looks really difficult to win now for anyone other than Chelsea. And City have to win something, you'd think. If not, Taylor's got to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Because that's 3 years without a trophy. And that's not acceptable. In that time, Arsenal have won silverware, Chelsea have won loads. Even United have won trophies in that time. That's the big difference. And I think especially if City are out of Europe and don't win anything this season, surely Taylor's gone this summer. That will be interesting to see whether the standard is set, whether those expectations have to be met, or whether they're simply predictions.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that rounds up our mid-table review. Not mid-table review, mid-season re-tabling.
Yes.
That's how I'm going to phrase it. Hope you have enjoyed. Do get involved in the comments down below. Give us your mid-season re-tabling. And give your thoughts on anything we've said in this video. That is everything, though, from us today. We're back this weekend with the live streams. We have got a double up on Sunday, Tottenham-Leicester, and then that aforementioned Manchester derby should be very good. So join us this weekend. That, though, is everything from us today. Thank you guys very, very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.